Hello, welcome to our New Mexico Book Association Fall Gala, and we're glad you could attend this afternoon. Excuse me. So we have a few things to do today, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just let you know who the New Mexico Book Association board and staff are, and those are myself, Jordan Jones, President, Miguel de la Cruz as Vice President, Connie Nelson, Secretary Historian, Paula Lozier, Treasurer, at-large member David Freubel, and then we have staff, Manager Mari Angulo and Kristen Romero help us do stuff. A little bit about NMBA programs. So what does the New Mexico Book Association do? Some of you are members and probably know this. Some of you are might not be members and you're here because of the SWBDA Awards. We welcome you and we want you to know a little bit about us. So we have lunch and networking events and workshops. We host Winter Fiesta and Summer Gala. This year's been crazy as people know, so it hasn't been on the same kind of schedules. Libro Nuevo newsletter is a publication that we do on our website. We have our SWBDA Awards, Southwest Book Design and Production Awards. We'll be celebrating winners and finalists of that tonight. And then we also have the Richard Harris Award and the Book in Hand Award. For members, we provide discounts on the workshops that I talked about. We help members take books to book shows. We had 2 of these events this October, and that was a welcome thing because, of course, with COVID, we hadn't had these kind of events, but we had 2 in-person book shows. And we took the sell sheets that people gave us, and those are available on our website to continue to let people know about those books. We help people get book listings on bookshop.org. So we've got a New Mexico Book Association bookshop.org page, and we add member books to that. We have negotiated a title setup fee discount of $50 per title. And we've set up a new member directory that allows people to do networking with other members, and more to come. So here's a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going to go tonight. So we're going to have Ann Hillerman is going to talk for a little bit. We have a section of in memoriam to remember a couple of members of the Book Association who have passed. Then we're going to present the Southwest Book Design and Production Awards. And finally, we're going to have a board election. We're going to elect 2 new members to the board. So I don't really have to say a lot about Ann Hillerman, and there's nothing I could say that you probably don't already know, but I'll just say that we're very pleased to have Ann Hillerman join us. Of course, she's a New York Times bestselling author, and she's also has been in the past a member of the Book Association and is looking forward to getting more involved with us. So please welcome Ann Hillerman.
Well, thank you, Jordan. I'm delighted to be here this afternoon, and I'm especially grateful for Zoom. I think it's, even though I get tired of seeing people in little boxes, it certainly is nice to be able to use technology to be all together. I have a long and really warm association with the New Mexico Book Association. My business partner, Jean Schomburg, and I did a program called Word Harvest Writers Workshops and the Tony Hillerman Writers Conference. And for a couple of years, we sponsored the Winter Fiesta as through our Word Harvest business. And that was when Jim Mafcher was the president. And I wanted to say, Jim was really a wonderful guy. I was honored to know him. I know some long-term members, I'm sure, remember Jim very well. He was such a tremendous supporter of us New Mexico writers and of publishers. Even though he was a publisher himself, I think he didn't know the word competition. He really kind of embraced the idea that we all should work together. He had such a generous spirit. And he really believed that helping each other was the way that would make the world work better. And I miss him, and I was really honored to have known him. And I also knew Victor de Souvreau, not as well as Jim, but I knew Victor mainly through his work as starting the Poetry in the Schools program. And I was really happy and enthusiastic about that program, because I think for so many kids who perhaps aren't lucky enough to have teachers who enjoy writing, that Poetry in the Schools program kind of helped kids realize that writing could be fun. And I think all of us writers understand that if people think writing can be fun and reading can be fun, next thing we know, they may be our readers and our fans. So Victor was just such a suave, charming, and really smart man. And he knew a lot about Santa Fe. So I think both of them were, I think New Mexico Book Association, really, it's to the organization's credit that people like Jim and Victor were involved. Well, like Jim and Victor, I am a newcomer to New Mexico. I didn't come here until I was 3 years old. So I still feel like a transplant. And I feel a little jealous when I run into writers like Carmela Padilla or Anna Pacheco, who can say, well, yeah, my grandfather, my uncles, all of my relatives have been in New Mexico forever. But anyway, I was glad that when I was 3, my mom and dad came to Santa Fe. So if people don't ask me too closely, I do say that I'm at least a long-term New Mexican, if not a native New Mexican. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about what it is about New Mexico that makes writers like people in New Mexico Book Association and people and other writers in New Mexico feel so comfortable here. And I know for me, it has to do with both the landscape and the history, which of course involves people. And there are writers like me and my dad who use, and a lot of you who are listening, who use New Mexico as a setting. And then there are writers like George R.R. Martin, who live in New Mexico, but don't use New Mexico as a setting. And then writers like other writers like Carolyn Fraser, who won the Pulitzer Prize for her Laura Ingalls Wilder biography, who lives in Santa Fe and sometimes writes about New Mexico, but mostly uses her tremendous talent to write about people from elsewhere. And when Carolyn won the Pulitzer Prize, I was wondering if she was the first New Mexican to win the Pulitzer, but actually no. I think Oliver Lafarge was probably the first New Mexican to win the Pulitzer Prize, and that was for Laughing Boy back in 1930. And then, hold on a minute, I have a little tiny list of other people who won it. Paul Horgan won the Pulitzer Prize for his book on Archbishop Lamy, and also for a book on the Rio Grande. And Scott Momaday won the Pulitzer Prize in 1969 for Housemaid of Dawn. And there may be others. And as I'm talking, I'm going to mention some writers' names. And if you all can think of others, actually jot them down and put them in the chat, because I would love to learn more as I'm talking about New Mexico and all of our wonderful writers. Well, like I mentioned, one of the real joys for me of living in New Mexico is the landscape. I think starting with where I live, which is northern New Mexico, the wonderful mountains, of course, Richard Bradford country with David Morrell. David Morrell, as you all may know, is the father of Rambo, and he's also written many other thrillers and mysteries. But one of his books that I love the most is A Christmas Story. It's kind of a combination of Christmas story and thriller. It doesn't have any of the ultra sugary sentimental stuff in it, but it's set on Canyon Road. Who else writes about New Mexico? The new Doug Preston's and Lincoln Child's new mystery series is set in Santa Fe. And of course, Willa Cather and the Bishop Lamy story. Oh, Bill Malden, of course, won the Pulitzer Prize for his World War II cartoons. Thanks for mentioning that. So then, you have the Rio Grande Gorge, the Taos Mountains, John Nichols country. Beyond there, the St. Augustine Plains, the very large array. Then you move into Reserve and Quemado, that exciting part of New Mexico, which is the landscape that Steve Havel writes about. Although he doesn't exactly say it, his Las Posadas Mysteries, which is a kind of an imaginary landscape that takes place in that part of New Mexico. You have the Silver City area with stories of miners and the Gila cliff dwellings, and the Southwest Word Festival, which I think now is maybe in its third year, which is really a wonderful addition to New Mexico's literary landscape. Then moving into Albuquerque, with, of course, talking about landscape, you have, and I think a lot of people don't think of Albuquerque as a landscape place, but if you are, as you're driving from Santa Fe, you see the volcanoes on one side and the Sandia Mountains on the other side. It always makes my heart sing to see that landscape. And of course, Rodolfo Anaya, Judy Van Gleason, my dad's work. My dad lived in Albuquerque, and in a couple of his novels, he mentions Albuquerque. Most of his stories are set on the Navajo reservation, but he does bring readers to Albuquerque in a couple of his books. Ernie Pyle, Joe Bedell. I'm sure the list of Albuquerque writers could go on forever. Then you have Shiprock, that the whole expansive landscape of the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, Grants, Gallup, Farmington, Hampton Sides, his biography, or his book about Kit Carson and the Long Walk, which has wonderful descriptions of that part of New Mexico. And then Lucy Tapahanso, the wonderful Navajo Nation poet laureate, who uses that wonderful part of New Mexico in her work. Let's see what else I was going to say. Then you move on to moving south, Tiercy, Belen, Los Lunas, the Bosque country, Mayor Pearl and Sue Boggio, and their wonderful sort of family sagas that are so rich in New Mexico atmosphere. Then you've got, of course, White Sands, the Tularosa Basin, Michael McGarrity country. And then, of course, Chama, Abiquiu, O'Keefe country, which Leslie Poland Kempis has written about so well in her Lady of the Canyon series. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, Nazario Garcia, his stories about Cabezon, that Jemez Pueblo area. And then of course, Jemez Pueblo, the one of the homes of Scott Momaday. I mean, I could go on. I think if landscape inspires us, we are really, really lucky to be in New Mexico. Edward Abbey, John Crane is reminding me that Edward Abbey, of course, wrote about New Mexico. Hold on just a sec. Let's see what else is in the chat. Oh, Mark Edward Langley saying his Arthur Nakai mystery series is set in the Four Corners area. Of course. Oh, and also Leslie Poland Kempis also writes fiction, which is set in the Abiquiu area. And then if you think of Chimayo, you have Don Usner's wonderful photos that use that part of our state. Anyway, I feel enormously lucky that when my dad was starting his career back in the 50s, and he could have, he came to New Mexico to be head of United Press International, which was based in Santa Fe. But I mean, thinking of how his career had gone, certainly he could have been invited to have gone to Omaha or Portland or Chicago or some of those other places. And I'm sure he still would have been a writer. But I think the flavor of his books would have been so different. And my life would have been different. I mean, speaking more about New Mexico writers who use landscape, Leslie Marmon Silko from Laguna Pueblo, Hampton Sides, of course, who besides that wonderful book that includes the Kit Carson story, has written all kinds of other great nonfiction stories from his base here in Santa Fe. So I think besides the landscape that inspires us, the other thing that really has inspired and motivated my work has been the history of New Mexico. And of course, history is the story of people. So I think we have to start with the first residents of New Mexico, the native people, and their origin stories, which have to do with the importance of wherever it was in New Mexico that was their homelands, the importance of that to their very being, and how either they came up from the underworld to the Sipapu or through reeds, and then coming out into the Four Corners country or along the Rio Grande, and that was the home that their spirit people had meant for them. A lot of those stories are either not written or are not shared with those of us who aren't part of that culture. But I think those stories are really a fundamental part of the fabric of New Mexico. And then, of course, you have the stories of the explorers and the traders who came from Spain and Mexico, and then later the trappers and the mountain men and the miners and the farmers and the ranchers and the families who came on the old Santa Fe Trail or who came up through El Camino Real, and the Jewish pioneers. One thing that I have always loved about New Mexico is how there was something about the place that welcomed so many diverse people. And I mean, this may sound corny, particularly in these days of cultural appropriation and friction, but I think it's true to say that there was something about New Mexico that kind of made room for a great diversity of thought and religions and ways of thinking. I mean, artists who claimed Taos and Santa Fe as their home, archaeologists, deep thinkers like Victor de Souvero and like Jim Maftier. And I think although this intermix of culture came with friction, sometimes fire makes things happen. And I think, anyway, that's what I like to think about New Mexico, that the friction between people of different places and with different views of the world sort of generated something that was important, and something that I think gives us writers and people who publish writers a lot to think about and a lot to be grateful for. I mean, then you have the whole story, the wonderful stories of how New Mexico became a state, and how that had to do with the friction between us in the Southwest, who lived very remotely and isolated, and the big guys in Washington, D.C., who kind of looked down their noses at Westerners, and particularly a state where Catholicism was the main religion, and where Spanish was still, I mean, back in the early 19th century, 18th century, was still Spanish. 20th century, Spanish was still the first language of a lot of people who lived here. And that was highly disapproved of in Washington, D.C. But anyway, eventually, New Mexico became a state. And I think those statehood stories, too, are just full of good fodder for people who are writing about history or just writing about what makes people tick. And then you have World War II and the whole, the Los Alamos scientists who came here, the Code Talker stories, the Bataan Death March survivors, and the whole deep roots of both patriotism and military service in New Mexico, in our native communities, which always has just really surprised me if you think of the pretty shoddy treatment that Native people have had throughout history, how they still have this warrior tradition and this deep and amazing, wonderful sense of patriotism. Anyway, one thing that I have long loved about being a New Mexican is the fact that New Mexico makes space for people who march to a different drum. And I think a lot of times that includes us writers. I think to be a writer, you have to sort of be a kind of a crazy person who enjoys spending time alone with her imaginary friends. And then these days, to be a writer, you also have to be a social person, because as we all know, being a writer also involves being a marketer. So then you have to, put on your big girl boots and do little talks like this, but actually in public with, hundreds of strangers you've never met. And anyway, I think because New Mexico has been a place that's welcomed people who didn't exactly fit the mold or didn't feel comfortable in the traditional mold. And also New Mexico is a place where people feel like we can stay, even though maybe it's harder to make a living here. Maybe life can be more of a challenge, perhaps because of the climate or because of the economics or because our families are still back in Minnesota or in Los Angeles or in who knows where, not close to us. But I mean, unlike some New Mexicans who have been here forever. But I think for transplants like me and transplants like a lot of us, I think New Mexico kind of embraces us and says to us, you're welcome here, and do the work that feeds your soul, and we will and enjoy our beautiful scenery and have some green chili and eat a sopapilla and be of good cheer. And I would like to say I have enjoyed being at so many galas, and so I really appreciated the invitation to join you all today. And I'm hoping that maybe in 2022 I'll be able to be with you more often, and maybe even in person. So thank you all, and I'm looking forward to the awards, and good luck with your writing. And for those of you who are publishers, good luck with that. And I hope all of us go on to be bestsellers, or at least make enough money to pay our rent this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming to talk to us, and really kind of a spirited review of the history of writing and publishing in New Mexico. There's so much wealth here of the things that matter, and you brought that forward, so I appreciate that. So the next thing I want to do is remember two former members of the Book Association, and I think we'll just take some time to remember them. I think Anne gave us some nice comments about them, but here we go. Oops. Now I want to start to announce the winners of the Southwest Book Design and Production Awards. But before I do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the awards themselves. Books are judged on principles and elements of design, including industry-accepted format, visual appeal, and consistency. The number of entries in the competition increased by 60% in 2021 over the 2020 numbers. We had 4 professional judges who rated the entries, and it was a lot of work because of the number of books that came and because of the quality of the work. And so one of the comments that I heard was that all the entries were superb, reflecting ever-increasing professionalism in self-publishing and small press publishing. And this judge also noted that they felt that the Book Association has an impact on this, in the sense that we are helping people across the book industry learn about each other and be able to avail themselves of people's various professional talents to bring together quality books. And so we hope that the Book Association helps do that, and we hope that it continues to provide value to people writing and publishing in New Mexico. So we're going to show the finalists and the winners. in various categories. And the first category is trade books, non-illustrated. In trade books non-illustrated, we have 3 finalists and 2 winners. The first finalist is Anne Hillerman's Stargazer. Congratulations, Anne. And the next finalist is El Caballo en la Cocina by Ralph M. Flores. And the next finalist is The King of Taos by Max Evans, in a new edition from UNM Press. The winner in this category is Love's Legacy by Daniel Fallon. And another winner, the judges have the right to choose how many winners there are, how many finalists there are, based on the criteria that they're applying. And in this category, there were 2 winners. So the second winner is Dark Horses by Susan Mihalik. The next category is trade book illustrated. This is where more than 30% of the book is illustrated. We have 2 finalists and 2 winners, I believe, in this award category. The first finalist is The Chimpanzee Chronicles by Deborah Roseman. The next finalist is The 3-Day Departure of Mrs. Annette Zinn by Mary E. Carter. Next, we have a winner, The Art and Humor of John Trevor by John Trevor. And the final winner in this category, Chili Peppers by Dave DeWitt. And the next category is art and photography. And I think we had another presenter for this.
Yes, I'm doing the presentations on the next category. Yeah, the difference between the art and photography books and the illustrated trade books is that art and photography books, the chief focus is the photography or the art. It's not the text, which is usually like 50-50 with the illustrated trade books. So in this category, let's see, I believe we have 1 finalist and 1 winner, which are, okay, finalist was Georgia O'Keeffe, A Life Well Lived by Malcolm Varon. And the winner is On the Path of, whoa, stop.
Sorry about that.
The winner is On the Path of Marigolds by Anne Murdy, which is the traditions of Mexico's Day of the Dead. And if you haven't seen this book in person, you should look it up. It's in, I think, most of the local bookstores. It is spectacular. Anyway, next category is scholarly and technical. We tend not to get a whole lot of contributions in this category because scholarly and technical people don't think of book design necessarily as something they need to think about. But I believe we have, let's see, what do we have in this category? First finalist, Making History. It's a book from the IAIA Museum of Contemporary Native Arts, edited by Nancy Marie Mithlow. And let's see, the winner was the Rio Chama, A River Guide to the Geology and Landscapes by Paul Bauer and a string of other authors. And this is a technical, it has technical aspects, but it's also a very beautiful book, I should add. Okay, and what do we have next now? Guides. Okay, this is a large category that includes everything from cookbooks, travel, recreation, sports, crafts, gardening, how-to, and so forth. And in this category, I believe we have, let's see, we have 2 finalists, I believe. The first is The Big Book of Blues Guitar by Andrew Leo Lovato. And another book called the second finalist is Going Full Circle by Barbara and Bill Packard, A Fresh and Honest Approach to Nonprofit Leadership. That's an excellent subject, but we're not judging on subjects, just on book design. And I believe, let me see, and what else do we have here? Okay, the winner was The Ecology of Herbal Medicine by Dara Saville or Saville, The Guide to Plants and Living Landscapes of the American Southwest. So in spite of its rather inclusive title, it actually is a Southwestern book. And I think that's it in this category. Oh, no, wait a minute. We had a second winner. Yes, I was, that snuck up on me. Yeah, it's also the Rio Chama, which is a guide, and by Paul Bauer and several other authors. So congratulations to everybody in all of these categories. See.
Thank you, Paula.
Yeah, sure.
The next category is poetry. And in the poetry category, we have 2 finalists and 1 winner. The first finalist is Took House, by Lauren Camp. The next finalist is My Book of the Dead by Ana Castillo. And the winner in this category is Me and Her Shadow by Christine R. Lund. The next category is Body, Mind, Spirit. And there is a winner in this category, no finalists listed. And that is Manifest Your Sacred Ambition by Rebecca E. Skeel. The next category is history. And the finalist in the history category is Timelines of the East Mountains by a whole slew of authors. And the winner in the history category is Love's Legacy by Daniel Fallon. The next category is memoirs. And in memoirs, we have 2 finalists. The first finalist is Under the Viaduct by Deborah Kaplan Lowe. And the next finalist is Still Moving by Linda Durham. So that's all the main categories that we have, and I want to applaud all the winners. This is again from the viewpoint of the judges, was a challenging competition in the sense that there were so many really good books, really well designed, well produced titles, and so it made it challenging for them to do this work. In honor of Jim Mafcher, we've named our Best in Show award after him. So from this year forward, we will call it the Jim Mafcher SWIBDA Best in Show Awards. We have 2 awards for Best in Show. One is for a hardback book and one is for a paperback book. So the Best in Show hardback is On the Path of Marigolds by Anne Murdy. And this is a tremendous book, so I do want to echo what Paula said about that. The next winner in terms of Best in Show for paperback is Chili Peppers, another excellent one, which I have on my shelf right over here, as a matter of fact. Chili Peppers by Dave DeWitt. So that's the awards portion of the evening, and a lot of really tremendous books and a lot of hard work that went into the design and production of these books that we're glad to be able to celebrate tonight. The winners will be receiving certificates in the mail soon, and also they'll have stickers they can use to announce to people on the cover of the book that they've won that award. And we appreciate all the people who've contributed titles and who've participated in this competition. It's really a key value, I think, in New Mexico for the Book Association to have this award that honors books that are by or about New Mexico and the Southwest. Just want to be clear that it's not only New Mexico. It's broadly the Southwest in terms of topic. So the next thing we have up is a board election. And so as I go into that, I'll just say that all of our current board members are continuing. the members that I announced at the beginning of the evening. And we have 2 additional candidates up for election. Per the bylaws, after the gala, the board will convene to elect officers for the year. So what the membership of the Book Association does is elect a board, and then from within the board, who the president and vice president, secretary, and treasurer is determined by them according to the bylaws. So the one candidate we have tonight is Shirley Mellis. So Shirley, maybe you want to say a couple of words. I'm putting you on the spot, I realize.
I guess I have to unmute myself. All right. Well, I'm excited about the prospects of serving on the board. I just, for me, books are a treasure. And if there's some way that I can help support their creation, good books are a treasure, and support their creation, I'd like to do it. So thank you for putting my name up.
Thank you. And the other candidate is Anna Sochaki. Anna, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. I really welcome the opportunity to join the board. I discovered the New Mexico Book Association in the height of COVID, feeling very alienated last winter, not having connections with other writers. So I'm really thrilled to be able to join such a vibrant organization. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll have the polling. So we'll bring that up. And if you are a member of the Book Association, you can vote to approve or not these 2 additional members of the board.
Jordan, I'd like to make a comment when I get a chance.
This seems like a good time.
I want to give a special shout out to the University of New Mexico Press. They submitted 7 books this year from both of their book designers. I hadn't talked to them, but I was hoping they would have had a contest between themselves to say who got the most awards, because almost every book they submitted won an award. One in particular, the one, that Rio Chama book, that thing is waterproof so that you can take it on a boat going down the Chama River. It's a gorgeous book, if you've never, you know. And yes, there were no winners in Memoirs, for those of you who are asking.
Okay. Thank you, Jared, and thank you for running those awards. I know it's a lot of legwork to get that, get all that done. So we appreciate the time you invested in that. So I think we can say that the election is complete. Not everybody in the room voted, but not everybody in the room is a member. So I'll share the results. And there we go. We have 2 new board members of the New Mexico Book Association. Well, I want to wish folks happy holidays, and also to say that early in the new year, we'll be starting up our luncheon meetings again, and we'll also be having a whole spate of different workshops and the standard work of the Book Association. So I appreciate people attending, and congratulations to all the winners of the SWIBDA Awards. Thank you.